Hello, everyone. As you take part in meetings in your life generally, how do they finish up? Do they finish up with a clear understanding, which is shared by everybody in the room, about what the results of the meeting are, in the sense of who's got what to do, right? Who's got which projects to take on, who's going to come back to the group and give status? Is that clear at the end of your meetings? Again, whether they're group meetings or whether they're meetings with individual people, is that clear or not? I was working with a client this week and this issue came up, and I thought it might be helpful for me to talk through maybe a little bit of my own experience and also the kinds of advice that I give to clients if they find that the meetings that they're running or that they're taking part in are not really optimal in this sense. So when I think back to my time in the large organization world, the corporate world, one of the things that would pretty often happen is that you'd walk out of a meeting and there was a general sense that there were some things that were going to happen, but there wasn't real clarity about who was going to do what. And so there would almost inevitably be, if this were a series of meetings, a regular meeting, I should say, where people are taking part in this meeting once a week or whatever, they'd get back together again for the next meeting. And all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, I thought you said you were going to, and oh, you've brought that back to the group, but that's not really what I was expecting you were going to bring back to the group. And so there'd be this kind of rub, this kind of gap between expectations and reality. And given the fact that the expectations weren't set, right? So not everybody in the meeting the last time around had a really good sense of what was being committed to. It probably shouldn't be a huge surprise that the results and this current meeting, there's some confusion, right, and some disappointment and some frustration and probably a little bit of stress. So let's just bring a couple of best practices to bear for your meetings. Okay, easier to do this if these are meetings that you run, but even if you're just taking part in the meetings, it's maybe not a bad idea to just suggest these as ways forward, as standard practices to get into the habit of, so that you can make sure that these meetings are more effective, more efficient, less stressful, and ultimately help you and whoever else is in the meeting be more productive, less stressed, more clear-headed. Okay, so what are the best practices? Well, let's pull out of the treasure chest of getting things done best practices this idea of desired outcomes. That's a phrase we use whenever we're talking about something that we want to commit to, which isn't true yet. Okay, if we have a short-term desired outcome, something that we want to get done in the next 12 months, in the GTD world, we call that a project. Okay, so quite often in the course of a meeting, it'll become clear that a project is being committed to. Right, somebody will say, "Hey, I think somebody should, take charge of planning this offsite for the team." Okay. That's a great opportunity, right, for somebody to say, "Yep, I got it. That's with me." And if somebody makes that kind of statement, then what you get back is clarity for that person. Okay, yes, I've taken this on, but also, of course, clarity for everybody else in the room. But you might want to go a step further, right? And this is where, again, maybe in your current meetings, those kinds of words are getting passed back and forth, but they don't really lead to the results that you want. So you might want to take it further and say to the whole team, okay, what does done look like for this offsite? What does done look like? Let's just do a little bit of a brainstorm about the things that we think are important if this offsite is going to be successful. Okay, and then you could look at things like, the things in the room that might get expressed would be things like, hey, we come out of the offsite with a clear indication that we've developed the skills in this particular area that the offsite is targeted at. We've had a chance to do a bit of team bonding. We've had a chance to do, to just hang out socially a bit together and to just make sure that we're connecting with each other as human beings. We make concrete plans for a follow-up offsite, which is going to check the results of that. So what I'm getting at is, if in this meeting somebody says, yeah, I'll take the offsite on, good. Better is develop a really clear picture of what done looks like. What's successful for this project? And if that's done in the group, as opposed to just letting it, leaving it to the person who took the project on, then you're more likely to have buy-in as you go forward. It'll be more effective and more efficient. And at the end of the day, it's more likely that offsite will be successful. So another thing we do in our meetings is at the end of our meetings, whatever we have meetings at Next Action Associates, we go around the table and we ask the question, okay, who's got the projects here? Who's got projects based on what's going on in the room? And then people can input and they can, suggest modifications, and they can, talk about whether they agree that the desired outcome is something that they agree with. Another best practice, again, straight out of the Getting Things Done playbook, one of the very first things that people learn about when they learn about getting things done is this idea of next actions. What's the next action? What's the very next physical, visible thing that you're going to do in order to move something forward? Again, let's go back to our meeting. So in a meeting, quite often, there will be situations where there's not a project, right? There's not some sort of bigger outcome, but somebody in the room will, it'll become clear that they should commit to do something very, a one-step thing. I'm not saying it's not strategic or important. It's not a long-term project. It's a shorter thing. I will generate I will create a list of all of the actions and projects from this meeting, and I'll send it to everybody who's in the meeting. That might be an example of a next action. Again, as you're, use that language as you're having your meeting, right? So you can say things like, okay, so what you've said is that your next action on this is you're going to generate a document which you will distribute to everybody in the meeting, documenting all the projects and the next actions. Is that right? So if you use these two tricks, right, these two procedures or these two best practices out of GTD, number one, make it clear from your meetings, what are the projects? What are the bigger outcomes and who's got responsibility? And have you done a good job of co-creating a picture of the done state for each one of those projects? In other words, what does successful look like for that project? And then the second best practice, again, around next actions, okay? Tighter, tactical, right? Less long-term things. But again, quite often, if our goal is to come out of the meeting with clarity about all of the commitments that have been made, then let's make sure we're clear about both. We're clear about projects and we're clear about next actions. And everybody in the room is bought into those. So I hope that was helpful. As always, if there's anything that I or anybody else at Next Action Associates can do to support you in your journey toward stress-free productivity, please do let us know. Hit like and subscribe. As always, please, if this was of interest and you want to hear more in the future. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.